What do you make of this tape, and how seriously should it be taken? Well, Richard knows that I will not mention the names of the people that I say I know. I can tell without any doubt that these are the people speaking because I know their voices. He knows the reason I won't do that, but he's pushing me and knowing that I won't do it. But if Parliament investigated, Parliament will name them, and I can use Parliament's document and sit on this show and say Mr. A and B, and I know that I'll be free. Nobody can take me to court for anything. Yes, Kofi?
Yes, so that's why investigations are necessary. And I would say it is proper that we go into this. It, however, does not mean that Parliament should investigate every leak tape. Otherwise, we will start a cottage industry in leak tapes, and it will send everybody on a wild goose chase. However, between the banter and the jostling of the two parties, I am more interested in looking at the broader picture as it reflects on the nation. And I think we need to take, some time to appreciate that. Look, we have a situation today where the appointee of the president, who at the time we heard noises about he having, sympathies for one side, is today the one being protected by the other side. Those things are important in a nation. So we need to appreciate that the work that IGP Dampare has done has come to the point where the NDC today feels a certain need to more or less protect him. It's a happy problem. We need to celebrate those little wins. Okay. Now, that being said, anybody who says that security is not fundamental to election integrity is not being, honest with the truth. Anybody who knows about election knows that one of the ways to rig an election or to, compromise it is to attack the security of the election. If people are not confident that they will be secure going to cast their vote, half of the electorate will not go to vote. It will take only die-hard supporters going to vote. And if we know, therefore, that security is consequential in having a free and fair election, then we have to ask ourselves, who gives confidence today in Ghana when it comes to general security? Let us not take for granted that the last few or one or two by-elections we've had almost, no instance of, insecurity like we had in the Ayawaso situation, that kind of thing. And that had a lot to do with the Ghana police. And the Ghana police is a very fine police service. In my work, like you, we deal with a lot of police persons, and I have to say a few of them are a disgrace to the service, but the vast majority do a very good job. And especially recently, the leadership of the Ghana police has enhanced the stature of the police, and we can see the difference. Nobody can tell me that the leadership and the person of IGP Dampare has no effect. So you have this cascading arrangement where the presence of IGP Dampare creates a lot of confidence. We shouldn't take that for granted. And it's not because I want to worship Dampare, all right? We know how it plays on the field. And that creates security, and that affects election. And we have seen it in the recent past compared to the other times. So when you have a situation like this, and then the other party, which normally will be worried about he being compromised, is the one that is speaking for him, I think that is something that on a national level, beyond the politics, we must celebrate and then seek more of such. On to the specific issue of the partisanship. The tape is important because of the kinds of sentiments being expressed. And I agree with Felix that the partisanship on that tape is worrying. And like you're saying, we wouldn't name the people there, but the fact that these are police officers, at least on the face of it, should give us some worry. And that is why I say we should investigate this one, because I think it is proper to do so and put the people where, according to law, they properly should be put. Because if there is truth to what we are hearing, not doing anything is terrible. We need to send a message that these attitudes will not be countenanced. Now, if it turns out after the investigation that this was a joke, we treat it as a joke, but it also sends the message that people who have these sentiments will not be tolerated. All right? So, in short, look, it is important to investigate it, but we shouldn't make a rule that every leak will be investigated. We should not pretend this is nothing. It is something. But we should also have this loftier, appreciation of the issues of security and appreciate that if IGP Dampare can sort of create this kind of mindset that he can shepherd a secure election, we all should work with him to make sure that he is able to do that with the kind of police service that we have. And I believe Ghana is the better for it. So I'm looking forward to the investigation.
You expect this committee by Parliament to do something very substantive?
That's another matter. In fact, yesterday I was having a discussion with a friend of mine who said his problem is with Parliament and the Parliamentary Committee. But I was telling the person, look, you have to have a certain amount of trust in the institutions that we have, even if we are going to work on them over time. Parliament is what we have. I don't see a better institution that will do some sort of investigation. My worry will be if nothing is done. But there is a larger problem. And the larger problem is that Ronald Reagan once said that weakness is a threat to peace. When people see that there is the opportunity to do some of these things, then they get the confidence to do so. Why would anybody sit and say, let the president, or he wants the president to move this person so that somebody else will do it? Because it can be done. And my worry is that we have an IGP office which is not independent. And indeed, the president can just sit down one day and move him. That weakness is a threat to the stability of that institution. And I think that is the loftier issue that Parliament should be seeking to plug. We have independent institutions in this country. And they were made constitutionally independent because we believe their work was such that they needed to have that protection in the Constitution so that they can execute their duties objectively without fear of victimization. If we have the Auditor General to be independent, we have NCCE independent, the EC is independent, Shraj is independent. Note that the office of the IGP is the only office in the country which by law can discharge lethal force and violence against citizens on order. They can actually shoot you. We've armed them. And they have to deploy this force against citizens and other powerful persons in the interest of stability and security. But today, our IGP is an extension of the executive. Meanwhile, the executive is the powerful institution sometimes which is prone to do things which require that people or institutions like the IGP will come to the defense of citizens against. What I'm trying to say is that it is anomalous that you have a situation where the IGP is essentially an extension of the executive, can be appointed or removed by the executive. And basically, if you read the law, what he does is determined more or less by the executive. It is time for us to amend that section so that his removal cannot be that easy. Then that weakness cannot be exploited for us to hear it in the tape that somebody wants him removed so that he can be put there and then he can use that.
So finally, I was asking about the Parliament and what he could do. First of all, they will have to establish the authenticity, the voices in the tape, correct?
Yes, but that is not really Parliament's job. Parliament has to have a committee to do that, but the doing of that is a forensic duty.
Exactly.
And ultimately, we'll go
exactly. So that's the first hurdle they must cross. Without that, they cannot proceed, can they?
No.
Okay. So
they have to identify the people.
So they suspect that it is a certain Mensah who has been named in this tape. It is a certain Bugri who has been named in this tape. And they call them and they say, it is not me. What can they do?
They have to forensically establish those facts, and then you are going to a criminal investigation, that kind of thing. Really, that is why I am saying
Parliament doesn't do this forensics. You have been in court. You realize that even the police lab, they have difficulties. Sometimes we are told in this country, voices must be taken somewhere to South Africa to be able to know certain things. So how do you see the end of this investigation?
So this investigation is really not about what it turns out. It's about establishing the principle. Parliament should, as a matter of principle, investigate it because it is important. The outcome of the investigation will depend on what you and I are discussing. It won't stand up in court if they don't do the proper forensics. So it's possible it will go nowhere. But then the principle that be established. But then that is why Parliament should move to the next level of making sure we don't have this kind of weakness which encourage people like this, because indeed it is possible
All right.
that people with political goals will
Okay.
seek to make these changes to affect elections.
Thank you very much. I can give you.